Hi guys, my name's Travis. Welcome to my channel. I'm a Canadian powerlifting champion and a coach of other Canadian powerlifting champions. And today is our Sumo Deadlift Masterclass. And in this, I'm gonna go over a lot of the subtle cues that really do make a massive difference that I don't really see in other YouTube Sumo Deadlift instructional videos. And I've watched a lot of them and I've learned a lot, but there's a lot of things that I've learned from my coaches and just myself and experience over the years and coaching others that really do work and can take your sumo deadlift up by 10 to 20 kilograms instantly. And I know that sounds like a grand claim, but believe me, I've done it dozens of times with dozens of clients and it does work. So stick around and watch this whole tutorial and I can guarantee you that you will see gains in your lift. Let's get to it.
So what we want to talk about is the setup, right? So I always say success is in the setup of any lift, right? So when you're doing the sumo deadlift, the first thing that you want to decide on is your foot width stance. So your foot width stance is going to be determined by a couple of things. Number one is going to be your groin or adductor mobility. But the prime rule, regardless of it, the prime rule is that when you go down to grab the bar, and I'm going to pause it right here. When you go down to grab the bar, number one, you can see that there's a couple of stacks going on. And this is from the front angle, and I'll show you the side angle in a little bit. But from the front angle, you can see that my hand is stacked directly below my shoulder, okay? And the feet are stacked underneath my knees, or the feet can be slightly wider than the knees, okay? And again, this is going to be dependent on how much groin or adductor mobility you have. You have to think about it. The wider you could go, and this is why some sumo deadlift bars that are specific sumo deadlift bars are actually wider than normal bars, because as they say, sumo deadlift is cheating because you're shortening the range. But I don't necessarily believe in that. I compete sumo, I pull sumo, I love it. I think it builds a massive back. But anyways, I digress. When you're looking at yourself from the front, you want to make sure that your hands are stacked directly underneath your shoulders and your knees and feet are stacked on top and underneath each other relatively. Again, the feet can be slightly wider, okay? So let's move on. Okay. Now when I'm placing my feet, I actually flex my feet, and I'll pause it there. You can sort of see, let me go back and forth here. You can sort of see when I flex my feet, my arch right here, when I do that, do you see how it turns my leg out? Do you see how it turns my tibia out, right? And that's going to do a couple of things. It's going to keep my knee in line with my toes when I'm lifting, okay? And it also does another thing. It keeps, I'm going to pause it here again. Blah, blah. See this flat part of your shin here? It gets you a ½ inch closer to the bar when you do that. When you get this flat part of the shin against the bar, you increase your leverage even more. So if you don't do that, if you don't put your feet out by about 30 degrees, or like I said, it's going to be determined by a couple of things. The prime rule is getting this flat part of your shin against the bar, okay? All right. So from there, the next thing you want to do is actually, how do you set your core, okay? Now, you can see here, I'm doing a big belly breath, and then I'm drawing the belly button in tight, okay? So big belly breath, that activates the diaphragm, and then I'm taking the transverse abdominis in and drawing it in against that belly breath. Now, this does a couple of things. It activates the thoracolumbar fascia system. I'm not going to get into a whole thing about it, but there's a few mechanisms that if you're not lifting with a belt specifically, you don't just want to push the belly out. You don't do that. You take a diaphragmatic breath in, which will push the belly out, but then you use the transverse abdominis muscle, which if you look that up, it looks like a corset that's built into you. It's a piece of muscle, and you draw that again. And then they're having this tug of war between each other, and that's what actually stabilizes your core. Okay, so I took the Paul Chek course on scientific back training and scientific core training, and learned a whole bunch of stuff of how proper biomechanics and anatomy function in the core musculature to to protect the back. What this does too is when you do that, it actually decompresses the lumbar spine. So it actually creates space in the discs to get you ready to lift. So because there will be a compressional load whenever you do heavy deadlifting, right? So big belly breath and then draw it in against the breath that you just breathed in, okay? Great course, by the way. Yeah, right? Now, if you are using a belt, you do the same thing. Big belly breath, draw it in, but then you bear down. You can see there, I just sort of bear down, and I'm thinking of I don't say pressing out. I'm just sort of like tensing my abdominals, okay? Because a lot of people, when they do this, they'll breathe in, and then when they draw the belly button in, they'll breathe out. You don't do that, okay? It's a big breath in, belly in tight, and then you just sort of hunker down like you're taking a crap or something, okay? Against the belt, okay? So again, big breath, belly in, and then you sort of just bear down and you'll feel all of your core musculature sort of tense out against the belt, okay? Yeah, this is intra-abdominal pressure, and when you do that, you'll see a bunch of arrows on this guy here. But when you do that, when you draw the belly button in, it pushes the viscera up into the flexed diaphragm, down into the pelvic basin, and that creates hoop tension in the core musculature, okay? And then again, when you go and you bear down, like you're taking a crap again, that's just sort of the diaphragm re-engaging itself, and you'll feel that pressure. And then you have this nice stability without disengaging your core to get the illusion of feeling of tightness when you're pushing out against the belt, okay? I'll make a whole video on this. It's taking up too much time. Let's go. All right. Okay, the next tip is flexing your pecs and your lats, okay? So there's me setting my core, and right there you can sort of see that I engaged my pecs there. You can't see me engaging the lats, but you do. You engage your pecs and your lats, and you can see that sort of internally rotates the shoulder there too, okay? But when you do that, when you engage your pecs and your lats, I'll just show you the lats here, but you can see that the lats have what's called an oblique sling relationship with the opposite glute. So the left lat works with the right glute, and the right lat works with the left glute through this oblique sling system. Now, what is one of the prime movers of a deadlift? It's the glutes. It's actually the legs and the glutes at the lower body. The upper body just sort of stabilizes, okay? But when you can tie them in together, you're giving the glute something to hang onto so that it can pull the insertion point of the glute and shorten the muscle, which creates a stronger contraction, which creates a stronger deadlift, okay? So make sure you flex your pecs and your lats, okay? The next tip I want to talk about is the descent. And I do what's called a false load descent. So once you've got your foot placement done, you're flexing your feet, your core is set, you're flexing your pecs and lats, okay? So those are the three things: your feet, your core, and your pecs and lats. Now we're ready to actually go down to the bar. So I set everything up at the top, okay? And I'll talk about this in a little bit, but I'll talk about it right now, actually. This gives me what's called the false load descent. You think of what a deadlift actually is. The deadlift is a deadlift. You're not loaded at the top, right? It's not a top, bottom, top lift like the squat and the bench press, right? Where you're loaded, you come down and you press it back up, or you're loaded, you squat down and you come back up. This might seem like more work, but what it does is it stimulates the central nervous system to realize how much weight and how much muscle it needs to recruit in order to get the weight back up. On a deadlift, you don't really have that, but I found a trick around this, right? If you set everything up at the top and you're engaged, you're fully engaged, and then you go down like you're lowering a heavy weight, okay? So here, you can't see, but everything's turned on, and I'm thinking of lowering a heavy weight, and then when I grip the bar, it's like I'm preloaded, I'm pre-sprung to come back up, okay? So that's another tip. Try to engage everything, okay? Remember, the art of lifting weights is flexing all the muscles at the same time and then moving certain muscles. But you're trying to tense everything all the time, okay? All right. let's talk about the grip. You can do a couple of grips, of course, right? You can do traditional hook grip or an alternate grip, right? Now, the hook grip is when, now you see right there, I actually just flex my pecs and lats, and you can see how that sort of turns the elbows out a little bit, right? So that's another thing. If you're lifting and you flex your pecs and lats correctly, it'll sort of turn your elbows to point out, okay? When I'm doing a hook grip, and I don't do it all the time, okay, but I'll do it like this, okay? You can look this up on YouTube, on other things, but when I'm doing a hook grip anyways, and I'm still learning, but I'm finding what works best for me, is covering it really only with the first two fingers. I know that there's a really good deadlifter out there, and he says get the third finger in there. The first two fingers, but then there's some confusion of where you actually hold it in your hand. Like, is the bar here? Another good guy that I saw, he holds it basically just in the fingertips and then locks it in with the thumb. I've tried all of this, and what I have found is that you still hold it. I don't know if you can see, but I still hold it so that the bar is here, and it still squishes in to just the end meat of the palm, right? So like that, and then I cover it up. I got a video up here as I tried to, so I took my hook grip and then I just sort of opened my hand just to see where it naturally was without me even thinking about it, right? And that's where it was, right? So it's there, and I think I pull it out here so you can see that it's still sort of in the meat, and then I put my thumb under and then cover it with just the two fingers, okay? So that's how I do my hook grip. You can try that. If you don't do a hook grip, I suggest that you start using it, because we've all got calluses here, but we don't have calluses here. You got to build that up, and it does take time, and I know it's frustrating, and I know it hurts, but I'll tell you, I've been doing alternate grip for many years, and there's definitely some strength and some functional imbalances that come with that. And here's a great picture of why this happens, right? If you look at my arms, they look crooked here, right? They look crooked, and that is because when you take one arm and you turn it in, the arm turns in like this, and this will be the arm with the palm that's facing away from the bar. That side of the bar will always drift away on a heavy lift. It does twist you up to a certain degree. Now, the reason why the alternate grip works for grip is because if the bar rolls out of one hand, it rolls into the other one. So it's constantly supporting itself. If one fails, it actually strengthens the other. So that's why an alternate grip tends to work. But as you can see, over time, you can develop some good or some bad strength imbalances and postural imbalances. Now, a good way to sort of work around that is alternate your alternate grip. Your warm-up sets, you're always going to have one side that you feel the strongest in, and if you're testing or you're in a meet, always go with that. But in training, just switch it up. That's one way to sort of keep yourself in balance there, okay? All right, now that's what it looks like from the front. Now from the side view, okay, when you're doing a sumo deadlift, you want to get those shins, like I said, as close to the bar. You can see how much time I'm taking. I'm looking around, I'm looking down, how much time it takes for me to actually do a good setup. Like I said, success is in the setup. Okay, so I'm getting my foot placement done. I'm getting my shins, that flat part of my shin, as close to the bar as possible. I'm going to set my core, my pecs and lats, and I'm going to do the descent, and I'm going to pause it right there. A common mistake is people thinking that the shoulder needs to be stacked over the hand from the side view. It doesn't, okay? If you look here, can I do this without screwing this up? If you look here, my deltoid, my glenohumeral joint, okay, is actually slightly forward than where my hand is, okay? And the reason for that is the way the biomechanics work in this situation is that the load is transferred more to the scapulothoracic joint down to the hand, okay? I know it's a weird thing and it looks sort of like I'm leaning forward, but trust me, if you try to actually just stack so that your glenohumeral joint is directly over your hand, you won't feel like you have power. You will naturally fall into this position to get power, and you will be correct to do that. So don't think that from the side view, you need to be stacked with the arm. From the front view, yes. From the side view, no, because it's the scapulothoracic joint, which is right here, and that is stacked right over my hand. Okay? So that's what gets stacked, and this is the proper position for the side view, okay? All right, let's move on here. Okay? And then when I lift, now I'll start to work, I'll talk about this on the ascent, right? But essentially what I've just done, or actually I should go back, right? Let's talk about, hold on. The angle, the starting angle. How low should your hips be? This is also going to be determined by a couple of things, but I think that you should place everything. If you place everything else correctly so far up until this point, then your angle of your hips and your back should be about even, about 45 degrees here and 45 degrees here. Okay, your hips shouldn't be too high. It shouldn't be like a Romanian sumo deadlift. Your hips shouldn't be too low, so that's like a sumo squat. Okay, it's still a deadlift. Okay, so that's usually a good 45 degree angle and a 45 degree angle. Okay, now on the ascent, now we're talking about the lift, and here's a very important tip. You can use the head as a momentum device. Okay, your head weighs anywhere probably between 10 to 12, 15 pounds, whatever. If you fling that up and it's attached to your body, you're going to transfer that inertia into the bar, and you're going to relieve 10 to 15 pounds of bar weight by using that. Okay, I don't see this done a lot. A lot of people like to stay really tight, and if that works for them, that's great, but I encourage you to try this because this is what has worked for me. Okay, so I sort of throw my head up, and now I'm going to pause it right here. That was mostly the legs doing the work here, okay? So when I'm here, from here, look at my back angle, look at my femur angle. As I ascend, okay, I'm going to throw that head up, and you see my pelvis sort of arches a little more too. Now, my back angle will start to straighten up, but it's going to be mostly the legs, okay? So right now, my legs are mostly extended, and now from here, the pelvis is going to shoot forward, and I'm going to activate my glutes and abdominals more. So from here to here, it's largely a quad dominant lift. Okay, it's largely a quad dominant lift from here to here. Now from here to here, because I paused it when I was actually recording. Okay, that's when the glutes and abdominals, and they do work together, come into play. Okay, so they come into play there. Okay, you can see. So when I'm there, my abdominals, come on, get back there and stay. Get back here and stay. Okay, my abdominals are open, so they're on a stretch. Okay, that allows me to then contract them harder, right? It gives me a cue to contract them. So now this is the anchor point, and the movable point is going to be the bottom of the abdominals, which is going to drive the pelvis forward and up. Okay, drive the pelvis forward and up. And the glutes do the same thing. They act on the pelvis in the same way. They will drive that pelvis forward and up, but they do it from the posterior side of the body. Okay, so the glutes and abdominals provide a posterior pelvic tilt to lock out the deadlift in the sumo deadlift, and they work together. Okay, and they basically they'll do the finishing portion of the lift. Like I said, the first portion is largely quad dominant. Here's a side note: if you're doing repetitions, okay, you can see I did a rep. Look at my belly now. Okay, I reset my core at the top. I reset everything at the top if I'm doing multiple repetitions. So I'll set my core, then belly in tight, and then I'll do another repetition, right? Now I just paused here so that you can see on the way down, it's just an exact reversal of what it looked like on the way up, okay? My pelvis just went back, it gets out of the way. And that also brings my shins, it makes sure that my shins don't drift forward, right? You're trying to keep that bar in a pretty straight line going down. See how I squatted it down with my legs? Remember, when the bar is moving, anywhere between the floor and your knee, it's largely leg movement, and the back angle stays relatively the same. Once the bar crosses the knee angle and it's going higher, it's largely the glutes and abdominals and a pelvis motion, okay, to lock it out. Okay, I'll just demonstrate it again. There it is. That's a lot of legs, that's a lot of pelvis, okay? And then on the descent, okay, just stick the butt back, getting the knees out of the way, and then you squat it down, okay? Here's what it looks like from the front. Boom, you can see I'm just pulling it into me, okay? Same thing. And if you do everything right, okay? And here's me in real time with a 260 kilo lift, and you can see I'm using an alternate grip there. And I'm happy because that matches my my all-time PR for a raw, right? I've pulled 600 in a suit before, but that's what it looks like, and that's what getting good at any lift is breaking it down into its constituents, practicing them, and then getting it to a point where it's so second nature to you that you can do it quickly. Now you'll see that I did what's called the grip and rip there, right? So again, I set everything at the top. Like I set all my stuff at the top. Look how much time I take to do this, right? I make sure everything is right before I go and get it. And this will be the last tip I give you, is this grip and rip technique. If you can go down and back up really fast, you create what's called the stretch reflex. If you've ever gone to the doctor, when I was a kid, they used to do this anyways, and they would knock your patella tendon with this little pointy thing and your knee would extend. Well, that's a stretch reflex that the doctor's testing there, right? So if you get a stretch reflex by moving down and then back up quickly, you're going to generate more force into whatever muscles you're using. So that's why I like to do this. I set everything at the top because I'm preloaded. I have that false load descent, and then boom, I'm creating the stretch reflex, and that totally works for me. I can always pull more weight that way, right? But you got to get good at the technique first. Anyways, guys, I hope this helps you to create a stronger sumo deadlift. These are the little things that I've learned over the years through other coaches, through trial and error with myself. And I wish you all to stay strong and free.
Hey, if the video helped you improve your sumo deadlift, please consider liking and subscribing. Also, if you want to check out my lifting fuel, okay, this is the pre-workout that I use for strength specific workouts. I don't use it all the time because I'm not in a strength phase all the time, but when I am, I use this. It has 1,200 milligrams of Alcar, acetyl L-carnitine, over a gram of creatine, and exogenous pure ATP. So it works within the 1 to 5 rep range the best. Better than any pre-workout that I found on the market. So that's why I started manufacturing this stuff for me and for you guys that are serious about strength. Thanks a lot for your time. Stay strong and free, you sons of bitches.